Begin the current Daf Mesechtes Bava Metzia Daf Lamed Vav. Begin on the bottom line of Lamed Hamed Beis, where the Gemara introduces an interesting conversation related to the halacha of our Mishnah. We had mentioned this interesting Mishnah. We had an interesting case yesterday regarding if someone rents a cow from his friend, he lends it to someone else, and then it dies. So then now there's really two tiers of liability. There's the one who borrowed from the renter, and then the renter from the owner. And that was the machlekes in the Mishnah. Well, it was Mesek Adarka, so the shayl is chayav to the seicher is pater to the owner. So would you say that the seicher is going to walk away with the money because he's exempt on the Mesek Adarka? Or like your BC says, how could this guy be doing business with the other guy's money? But the Gemara introduced a different concept related to karbonis, regarding the swearing falsely, how that applies regarding this exact case of our Mishnah of the seicher and then hishila la'acher. All those who came back from very far away, who are finally back, appreciate them, and throughout the entire world. So discussing today's daf are shavuas kfiras mammon asham. There's different types of, when you swear falsely, it's not just this blanket. It depends what's going on. If you're swearing and you're denying money, so then that's asham. You're going to be chayiv for carbon asham. But if there's a shuas bitus vasayim, which you just swore falsely, and there's no monetary gain, that's going to be a chata. So that's a very different carbon. So the Gemara is going to explain how that applies to the case of our Mishnah of the seicher and then sheshila acher. And then, which was being asked yesterday and the previous stuff, they wanted to know, well, how is this possible regarding if the seicher then lends it out to someone else, which that opens up the conversation about shemesh shemasel shemer. Could a guy who is a custodian, which is what a seicher is, go then give it over to someone else? Are you allowed to lend it? Can you give it to someone else to watch? And what would the halacha be? The Gemara gives two different reasons for B'yechanan's opinion of shemechinam shemasel shemesacher that you can be chayiv. Why? If a shemechinam he's watching for free, he upgrades. He pays someone else. Says, "Look, I'm doing me a favor. I can't watch this guy's stuff anymore. I'll pay you to watch it." He's still going to be liable, even though he's upgrading, so to speak, the level of a shmira. By getting a shemesachar, Abaye says, because the owner claims the guy says, "I don't want someone else to touch my stuff. I asked you, not someone else." Rabbi says the owner claims no. I don't trust that guy. Forget about that. If I want someone else to hold my stuff, but the guy's going to swear to me that it was an oinus, it was mesa. I don't trust that guy, and therefore, by giving it over to someone else, he's going to be chayiv. The end of the Gemara on Amud Beis discusses a case of, let's say, Pashaba, let's say someone was negligent, the Shemer. V'yatzis la'agama went to a swamp where it could get stolen, things could happen, but actually it was just Mesek Adarka. It died in the regular way anyway. So that's regarding the conversation of what's called Chilas B'Pshia B'Seif B'Ainis. Initially, where you did an act of negligence, you let it go out to the Agam, but at the end was an Ainis anyway, it was Mesek Adarka. Would you be liable in such a case or not? And the Gemara actually shows it's not even dependent on the classic machlekes Chilas B'Pshia B'Seif B'Ainis, and would be dependent on something else. So begin the current daf, the last line, Lamed Hamed Beis, which this is going on the halacha of the Mishnah, again, which was the case of if someone rented a cow, he lent it out to someone else, it died the normal way. So then you have this situation where it's like, okay, what's going to happen regarding liability regarding the original owner? However, opening up in a different way, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Pa'amim at times, Sheshneim, the seicher, the renter, and the one who borrowed from him at times, when they swear falsely, and if they're not denying any money, so what's that called? That's called a shvuas bituy. That's just an oath of an utterance. There, the carbon is going to be, and if this is what the Gemara is going to explain, if it's applied by both of them, it's going to be bechatas. That's what it says in Mayikra, the parashas we have now, oy nefesh kisi shava. If a person is going to swear, and it's going to be falsely, levatis vasayim, so then that's going to be a karmachata. So sometimes the seicher and the shayl who are lying and they're under oath are both going to be chayvachatas. That's one case. As a continued tabel amad vav med aleph, pamim sometimes sheshneim ba'asham. Sometimes they're both going to be chayv an asham. If they swear falsely and they're gaining in their oath to lighten their monetary liability, which is called kfiras mammon, the denial of money, then the carbon you bring for that false oath is an asham, which is a ram in its second year, like it says also in these parashas in Vayikra. Hey, that where it says "V'hevius hashamoy ayol tamim be'erkecha kesef shkalim," which is what's known as hasham gezelis, which is for stealing that carbon asham. You swear falsely, you're chayiv an asham. That's case number 2. Then there's case number 3. Sometimes you could have that the renter, the first guy, he'll be chayiv b'chatas because he's not having any monetary gain. We're going to explain each one of these 4 cases. But the bar will be chayiv asham because his false oath he's gaining monetarily. And then the 4th case is no. Sometimes the seicha will be chayiv asham, and the show will be chatas. Says the Gemara, says Rabbi Yirmiyah HaKetzad. What are these 4 different cases? So the Gemara first explains the concept. The principle is kviras mammon is asham. When you deny money, then you chayiv an asham. Bitis v'sayim, if you're just uttering in your lips a false oath, chatas you can be chayiv a sin offering. So the Gemara explains each one of the cases. Case number 1. We said that sometimes both the seicher and the shayl could be chayiv chatas. Is if the animal died in the normal way, but v'amru, what did they tell the original owner? They said nensa, as Rashi explains, meaning they said bandits came and they forcibly took it from us, and they swore to that effect. So although the shayl has to pay for einzin, says Rashi, so what's he doing swearing? There's no oath. He's not denying anything. No, they make him swear, like Rav Huna says, he has to make a shvur she'ein b'rshusai. As I said in the previous stuff, he has to swear it's not in his possession because we're concerned that maybe he liked it and he wants to keep it. So he swore that yes, oh, what do you mean? Of course I don't have it. These bandits came and they stole it from us and I don't have it anymore. Well, he's chayiv anyway, but he swore falsely. So, yeah, because we said Rav Huna, because he's chayiv to say ein b'rshusai, in that oath he said, and he didn't have to say this, but he says, the bandits came and they took it and we don't have it. No, that's not what happened. What happened is actually died. For some reason, they were afraid to tell him, who knows, whatever, that's what they swore falsely. Now, the seicher, the benkach, the renter, whether they had sworn the truth that it died in the normal way, or whether they swore like they did falsely that it was an einus of bandits, either way, mifta pater, he would have been exempt either way to pay. So therefore, in his lie, there's no denial of money. Had they said the truth, he would have been pater. So this is called a shvuz bitoy. He's lying, not gaining. He would have been pater either way. So that's going to be b'chatas. It's going to be chay b'chatas. He's not gaining any monetary gain by his false oath. Now, shoyl is also, but for the other way around. Either way, he would have to pay whichever einus it is, because he's a shoyl. Comes out, he's not denying any money by lying on the oath. So this is again a shavus pita, and he's also going to be chayiv b'chatas for the chatas. So either one he would have been pater either way. He would have been chayiv either way. So, but they're both lying on the oath, so that's going to be a chatas, not an asham. Okay, that's case number 1. Case number 2, pa'amim sheshneim ba'asham. At times, they're both going to chayiv an asham. Kugain shenigneva. If it was stolen, now a seicher has to pay to the owners when it's stolen. He's chayiving an aveda, and of course the shayl has to pay to the seicher. Now, what did they say? Misamach mas malacha. They were lying on the oath, and they say it died through the work that it was doing. Now, a shayl exempts himself if he lies from having to pay to the seicher, and the seicher from having to pay to the owner if it died because of the work. So the tarvayu kokafri mamayna. Both of them are denying monetarily, because they both would be chayiv if it was the truth, which was geneva, and they're both saying something. Even the shayl is exempting himself because even a shayl, who's usually chayiv on everything, is patin that too. So therefore, they both would be chayiv an asham, because that's a kfiras moment. Case number 3, you could have a case that seicher b'chatas, the shayl ba'asham. The seicher will not be monetarily gaining, so he'll be lying, but he'll be chayiv b'chatas. Shayl will be chayiv an asham kugan shemesa gedarka. If it died in the normal way. Now, had they admitted to the truth, the seicher would be pater, because that's an einus. The shayl would be chayiv. But v'amru, they both lied, and they said mesa machmas malacha. It died because in the work the cow was plowing, it was pulling, and then just plopped dead. Okay, so seicher, the renter, the benkach mifta pater, he would have been pater anyway had they said the truth that it just died. it's a chai b'chatas. He's lying, he's swearing falsely, he's chai b'karbon, but it's going to be a chatas, a sin offering, because he didn't gain anything monetarily. He would have been patur anyway. Shoyel, on the other hand, the b'chai b'mesek gedarka, he's liable if it dies in the normal way. And he's letting himself off the hook by saying that, oh, wait a second, it's something that I'm patur on, it died during the work. Well, then ba'asham, he's chai b'karbon asham, a guilt offering because he's gaining monetarily. The last case, which is the inverse, seicher ba'asham, that the seicher is going to be an asham b'shayel b'chatas, the shayel zachatas, it's kagoyin shenignava, is where, if, for example, where it was stolen. Now, both of them are liable for stealing. The Amrin, what did they say? They lied. They said mesa kedarka, it died in a normal way. Now, the seicher is exempting himself by this lie because he's making it now from geneva into an einus. The shayel doesn't gain anything by that anyway, by this lie, because he's chayav on mesa kedarka on the einus anyway. Okay, so the renter who is liable for theft and loss, and he's letting himself off the hook by swearing falsely that it died in a normal way. So b'hasham is chayav b'karbon. Shoyel, on the other hand, the borrower, the mechayev anyway is chayav to pay. So his oath is going to make him be liable b'chatas for a sin offering. Those are the four cases of a Yirmiyah. Says the Gemara, my Kamash Malan, what's Rabbi Yirmiyah teaching us? These are mishnayos that we have in Mesech Shavuos that says if someone changes from a liability to anyways being liable, or from exempt to being anyways being exempt, or from exempt to being liable, you're patur from Hasham Gezelis because you're not gaining anything monetarily. Your only time you chayv an asham is when you're going from chayva, from liability, to patur, to being exempt. So Rabbi Yirmiyah is not teaching me anything that I don't already know from these complete mishnayos Mesech Shavuos. Says Gemara, no, what he's teaching is lafukim Rabami. It's like almost a secondary point. The Amar, Rabbi had said that kol shvua, any oath, shadayanim mashbiim oisa, that the judges are making the person take, which is the case over here. When you have a shomer and he's taking an oath because of the court, ein chayavna lem b'shvuas bitui. There's no liability for a chatas of a shvuas bitui, which we are saying that there are going to be if you swore falsely, even though no monetary gain, you're going to be chayiv. But Rabbi says that no, the pasuk says in Vayikra oy nefesh kisi shava labati b'svazayim. If a person is going to swear with the utterance of the lip, now the wording, the terminology of the pasuk kisi shava, when he's going to swear, sounds like me'atzma. If he chooses to, volitional, that. But if you're forced to make this oath because of the courts, then there's not going to be a chayv shvuz bitui. Kamash malan, the Rabbi, that was the chiddush of Yirmiyah, not really the halacha itself, but the fact that it's applicable to have a chatas by the shayrim, even though the judge are making you swear, and then you swear falsely without any monetary gain. That's the chiddush that Rabbi Yirmiyah was saying, that you're going to be chayev for a shvuz bitui. Okay, that concludes that thing. Now, going back to the halacha of our Mishnah, the Gemara introduces a machlokes amaram that's going to be referred back to the halacha of our Mishnah. Itmar, we learned shomer shemasel l'shomer. Someone gave his item to a shomer, who then transferred it to a second shomer, where it was damaged. So we have machlokes Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Rav amapater. Rav says that the shomer is exempt from whatever he would have been exempt had he been watching it. He's not more liable the fact that he gave it over to another shomer. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you know what? You chayav for all damages, even einzin. Even if you are a shomer chin, whatever it is, the fact that you gave it over to another shomer is going to make you liable. Okay, so what's the reason for this? So I'm Abaya. Abaya says, so he first qualifies this halacha. And he says, l'taimid de Rav, according to Rav that says Yepater, and he explains each one's chiddush. You don't have to say that you can be pater from einzin, where we don't say that it's a negligence that you're giving it over to someone else. In the case of, let's say, shemer chinam, shemas l'shemer sacher, where an unpaid custodian gives it over, he pays someone to watch it. That's an upgrade in the protection, because we know that when someone's getting paid, that's why he's chayav b'gnev aveda, because he's going to be more meticulous to watch better. So says Abaya, Rav, who says that when you give it over to another shomer, you're going to be pater. I don't have to tell you that you're pater from any great liability. When you upgraded your shmira, no, even if a guy is getting paid $100 an hour to watch this guy's car, and then he says he wants to go take a bite to eat, and he asks a friend of his, do me a favor, can you watch this car for 20 minutes? I want to go grab a bite. And the guy says, yeah, no problem. He just does him a favor. The guru, you go to Lishmidasa, where he's downgrading the Shmira. Because the guy who's doing it for free, he's not so attentive, because he's like, I'm doing this guy a favor. Even so, Pater, that original Shem is going to be Pater. My time, what's the reason? Says Abai, because he gave it over to a person with intelligence, and that's not considered a downgrade of your Shmira. Now, he says, now he goes the other way around too. He says, according to the reason of Rabbi Yechanan that says that Shem is going to be chayiv, that you're liable for even, in other words, like you're negligent over here, you can be chayiv even for more than you normally would be chayiv. I don't have to tell you that when a paid custodian gives it to an unpaid custodian, the guru go to Lishmira, so you're downgrading your Shmira. Okay, not only there does Rabbi Yechanan say that you can be chayiv for giving over to another shemer, they're both like the Abai is saying the extreme on their opinions. But even if a guy who's doing it for free, he pays someone to do it, even so chayiv is going to be liable for, let's say, something more than they normally will be chayiv, like an aynas. Because the Amalei, and this is version number 1, Abaya, the way he explains this opinion of Rabbi Yechanan is because the owner could tell him, I don't want my item to be in someone else's possession. So I don't care if you paid this guy and you're upgrading the shmir. That's not what I asked you to do. And therefore, the fact that you give it to someone else is going to chayiv you even for einsim. Now, Taisa says, in the Masel Emret Zayin, he says, don't explain that the reason why Rabbi Yechanan will hold you chayiv according to Abaya is because you deviated from the intention of the mafkid, and if you chayiv an old einsin, even the einis which would have came in the possession of the first shemer, and he proves it. He says, as we'll see later on from what Abai asked on Rabba later on regarding different cases, even though there's shina medas balapara. So Taisa says rather the reason is because it's considered as if he specified to him that if he deviates from what his intention was, for example, let's say if he gives it over to someone else, it's as if you're negligent. And therefore, all incident that happened, that you could suspend and say, had it not happened, had you not given it to someone else, you can be chayiv. For example, let's say if it dies in the house of the second shemer, well, you could be tailor to say that it was the airspace of that house that killed it. You could say that. And maybe had it been in the house of the first shemer, it wouldn't have died, because let's say one area would have been better from something else. And if it's like a negligence, and therefore that's why you're going to be chayiv. That's how Taisa explains the svara of Abaya and Rabbi Yechanan, why even though you upgraded the shmira, but it's like as if I told you that you're going to change from whatever I told you, that's considered somewhat of a negligence. Now, Amr Rav Chizda, so he says that actually Had the Rav, this teaching of Rav that says that Shem Shemas Hashem is Pater, Lav Befeida Shitbar, it wasn't explicitly Rav came out and he said a teaching that Shem Shemas Hashem that you're going to be Pater. It's El Machlala. Rather, it was inferred, and he's actually saying it's a mistake that they made, that if someone saw Rav Paskin something, he thought that you could show that he holds Shem Shemas Hashem as Pater, but it actually was not the case, because it was actually based on a story, the Hani Ginoi. There were these gardeners, the Chol Yom have a Mifkedim Morayu. Every single day, they would deposit their hoe, which is a tool that used to turn over the earth. They would deposit it Gabada Hisapsa by this elderly woman. That's where they kept it. One day, they actually deposited by one of the gardeners himself. He was the one who was watching it. Shama Kala Behilula, but he heard the sound from the bar, from the disco, from the whatever it was, the party going on. So he's like, I'm not missing this party. But here he is, he's holding on to the hoe and watching it. So Nafik Azal Afkedinu Legabada Hisavsa. So on his way to the bar, on the way to the party, he goes and he stops by the elder woman, the Baba that they always keep it by, and he went and deposited by her. She's so the Azal Ba'asa, by the time he went and he came back, Igniv Marayu. The hoe was stolen from the possession of the elderly woman. So also coming to Rav Padre. So he came to the Rav, and Rav says, you're Pater. Now this is the big problem when people watch, Gedolim, and they start making assumptions. Man the Chaza, so the one who saw one of the students that heard from Rav that he's let him off the hook, Savi, he thought, you know what the Rebbe holds? Because here all the gardeners gave it to this one guy to watch. And he gave it over to the Baba to watch and was stolen from him. He's Pater Einstein. and it's not a shayl. So and he gave it over to another shayim. You see that you're pater. That's why they quoted Rav as saying the shemesh l'moshe is pater. But says the Gemara belohi. But Rav Chisda says not the case. Shani Hasam there was different. The chol yomenami because every single day also inu gufayu the gardeners themselves gabadi yisav savam efkedila. They themselves were deposited by her. So as Rashi explains, what was the svara that we explained for those who disagree with Rav? Let's say Rabbi Yechanan, who says that you're going to be chayiv. Abai explained because the owner could say, I don't. In return, it should be acher. Says Rav Chisda, Rav agrees to that principle, but here they can't say we didn't want to borrow. Every single day you give it to her. So since you lost that svara, that's why he says you can be pater. But in general, it's a mistake, says Rav Chisda. This that they quote Rav as saying that you're going to be pater. It's not true. He would agree to Rabbi Yechanan that you're going to be chayiv. Now Yosef Rabbi was sitting, but Kamal Allah Shmaiti was saying over this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan, his Rebbe, that you are chayiv, which seems to be, according to Rav Chisda, everyone agrees to this principle that you're going to be chayiv. But so Rabbi was saying over this teaching, Rabbi asked on him from the halach of our Mishnah, this was people mentioned yesterday when we said the Mishnah. Mishnah says, if someone rents a cow from his friend, and then we said v'shila achar, and he lends it to someone else, and then it died in a normal way. So he said, Yishava hasaycher shemeisa kedarka. So the renter swears that it died in a normal way, and because he's pater on oinus of misa. V'ashoyel misham l'saycher. The shoyel, however, is chayiv, and he pays to the saycher. Now says Rabbi Bamamel, v'meisa. Now, if Rabbi Yechanan is correct that shemesh shemas l'shomer is chayiv, lamely, why doesn't he tell him ein retain l'shem b'gdein b'yad acher? You're not pater. You're pater because it died, because of oinus? No, this was negligence because you gave it over to someone else. You can't do this. So how can we understand the halacha of our Mishnah that if you hold shemesh shemas l'shomer it's chayiv? So how would you be pater on the oinus of misa? So Malay on the Rabbi said to Machmaiskini, we're talking about in the Mishnah Mishnah loy lahashel or shus habayim lahashel. Either way, he gave him to lend it. That's why he was allowed to. You're right, generally you're not allowed to, but he said you could lend it. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, that means to say who lent it to the guy was really the original owner. So why is he paying to the seicher? He should pay to the owners. Says the Gemara, no, the Amr Lei, the owner said to the seicher, l'daitach, or whatever you want. If you want to lend it to someone else during your time of rental, we are not makbid. So therefore he lent it. And the owners cannot say, we don't want. The whole reason why you usually chayiv is because they said, no problem. You want to lend it out to someone, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. But they're not lending it out. So therefore that's why that the seicher is not going to be chayiv on the oinus, even though generally shemesh shemas l'shem is chayiv. At the same time, that when the shoyl pays, it doesn't pay to the owners because they didn't lend it to him. They're going to pay it to the seicher because he's the one who lent it out. So our Mishnah is not a difficulty, although generally you're not allowed to, let's say. Our Mishnah Tumah, he was given permission. But Masar Rami Bachama asked him in Mishnah later on of Membezim and Alf. Mishnah says, Hamafkid Mois Itzl Chaverim. Someone deposited money by his friend. Now, if someone deposited money, but you have an obligation to watch it. So says the Mishnah, what happens if Tzaran, he bundles it up, Vishin La'chayrav, and he throws it behind himself, which that's like an inferior type of watching, or Misaran Lebenoi Bita Getanim, or he gives it over to his young children to watch. Benal B'Fanayim, and he locks the door in front of these minors. They shouldn't go outside and lose the money, but he did a Shaloi Karo. It wasn't appropriate, it wasn't enough of a lock in the door. So Chayiv, so any one of these cases, the Shem is going to be Chayiv, because Shaloi Shema Kederech Hashem, he didn't watch it the way Shem usually do. It was an inferior type of Shmira. It's his negligence. He's going to be chayiv. Okay, but the Gemara makes a diak. Taimik de ketanim. Sounds like that the reason why the Shem is chayiv because it was minors that he gave it over to. Hagadailim. But if it's adults, then Pater would be exempt. Wait a second, Why would that be? If Rabbi Yechanan is true, Neimalei, let the mafkid, let the owner tell him, Ein retain shebik dimiyad acher. I don't want that my item should be in someone else's possession. You give it over to someone else to watch, you're negligent. You're going to be chayiv even in einzim. So why are we saying that only because he gave it to his ketanim, even gedalim should be chayiv? So Rabbi says, Kol mafkid, whoever deposits something as a continue to bays, al das ishtei ubanavu mafkid. When you give it to someone else, you know that this guy is he's not a one-man show. You're giving it over, you know it takes a family, it takes a village. You know his wife or his kids, the adult kids. In other words, children, you're right, is a negligence. But his adult kids, you can't say, oh, I don't want, oh, I didn't give it to you to give it to someone else. It's not someone else. You realize you give it to me. My wife might do it. I have to go out, my kids, whatever this and that. Not children, but therefore that's not considered biyat acher to say that he'd be chayav. And Amin Ardai says, Dekanami, a precise reading that we're saying that if it was adult children, that he'd be pater, that specifically his children and not others. Because we learned, because that's what we're saying, it's his own children, but they're adults. Other people would be a problem, actually, and that's what we're saying, according to Rabbi Yechon, the guy would be a shemesh l'shaymer, that you'd be chayav. But you're pater because you're adult children, because it said, Oisha Masaran l'bnei bita hakatanim chayav. He said, or if he gives over to his minor sons and daughters, he'd be chayav. Now the inference is, l'bnei l'bita hagadolim pater. But, okay, wait a second. But if it's his adult sons and daughters, then he's exempt. But the inference is that others, that even not only if they were minors, but even if they were adults, that you would be chayiv. Why? Meaning that's exactly Rabbi Yechanan. Because if it would be true that for others also, if they're adults, you'd be pater, so listen, then the Mishnah should have said, or he gives it over to ketanim, stama. Why are you saying, banav u'bitai haketanim? So Shema Mina, what we could infer from that is that obviously that it's only by his own children, like Rabbi said, because aldas ishtei banav mafka. But you're right, someone else, even adults, you actually would be chayiv like Rabbi Yechanan. So Taisa actually brings the top Taisa, but he says, well, this seems to be difficult then according to Rav. You see clearly, not like Rav. You see Shem Hashem would be chayiv. So it says Taisa, what you could say is that no. You could say the reason why he picked banav was a chiddush. The truth is, you would have thought to say that for his own minor children, also a person would deposit it, because it's normal that sometimes a person asks his 10-year-old to watch something. So you would have thought that it'd be pater. No, you're right. It really would have said ketanim. That would have mean, but gedolim, all gedolim would be pater, because Shem Hashem is pater. The Gemara's dik is not true. Rav would say, said it's coming just to tell you that even his own minor children, he'd be chayiv. Or you could say the reason why it picks banav and it doesn't say ketanim, because he wanted to be medayik, but gedolim would be kederach hashemim, and it's permitted because a person has a mind for his adult children, but general gedolim, you wouldn't be able to do it even though you wouldn't be chayiv. So Taisa says, Rav agrees that you're not allowed to, but it doesn't mean that you'd be chayiv. He was telling you that for your own adult children, that's even mutter. So that's why we picked banav and not banim to tell you the halacha of inferring that gedolim would be mutter, because you're right, other gedolim would still be aser, although you'd be pater. He was telling you his own adult children, however, is not only it's not only pater, it's even mutter to do that because it's his adult children. Rak upon him, that's what the Gemara wants to say. It's meduyik like Rabbi Yechanan. Amar Rava says, Hilchas Halacha is Shemer Shemas L'Shemer Chayev, like we said, according to Rabbi Yechanan, that if a Shemer gives over to another Shemer, that's actually a liability or considered negligent giving over to someone else. But he gives a different interpretation of Rabbi Yechanan. He says, like Abayat said, I don't have to tell you if you downgraded. You went from a Shemer Sachar to Shemer Chinam. The Guru Gadol said, now you're getting paid, and you ask someone to watch it for you for free. No, that even if you were not getting paid and you upgraded, you paid someone, you're still going to be chayav. My time, what's the reason? So here he says a different reasoning than Abaya. Because he could tell him, you I trust to swear to me that you weren't negligent, and then you're going to get off the hook. This guy I don't trust with an oath. I say that he still has it, or he ate it, or he's negligent, and therefore that's a negligence on your part of giving it to someone else. I don't trust this guy. So that's why Rav explains, Rabbi Yechon will hold, you can be chayiv. Now Taisin the Maskah Atmehemnesli says, so therefore, where the first shomer could swear on the einus, you don't need the second guy to swear. The first guy could swear that he saw that it died, or there were witnesses. So then what would come out would be actually that according to Rav, Rabbi Yechon would agree that you can be pater. even if you give it to Cher Shayv and it died in their possession, because since even in the possession of the first Shomer, it would have died, because the Malach HaMavos, he visits here, he visits there, who cares? So Rava holds that's the reasoning of Rabbi Yechanan. So according to Rava's interpretation, in the case where the second guy doesn't have to swear, let's say there's Adam, you wouldn't be negligent having giving over to the second person. But according to Abaya, you'd still be chayiv, because I don't. And Taisa Paskins, halacha is like Rava, not like Abaya. It's a not like Rabbeinu Chananel, the Paskins like Abaya. So that would be a nafkamina between the two cases. If the first shomer could swear and you don't need the second shomer, that's a nafkamina between Rava and Abaya. In Rabbi Yechon, the whole shomer is chayiv. Would you be chayiv in such a case or not? According to Rava, you'd be pater. According to Abaya, you'd be chayiv. Now, a related discussion says the Gemara, Itma, we learned, Hashaba. What happens if the shomer was negligent? Like we mentioned in this Mishnah that we said passing regarding this guy who gave it over to his kids or whatever. So let's say the guy was negligent. He didn't lock the door appropriately. The Yotzis la'agam. And now the cow went out to marshland. Now, that's a place that's not protected from wolves. It's not protected from thieves. But that's not what actually happened. It wasn't eaten by thieves. It wasn't eaten by wolves. Actually, what happened was, the animal died in the normal way, how it normally dies. So this is what's called in halachic literature, chilasa b'pshia. What you initially did was a negligence, because you let it go out to the swampland. Wolves could have totally just devoured it. But at the end, it wasn't lost with that negligence. It ended up that an einus was what happened. It died in a normal way, which is nice. You can't stop something from dying. What's the halacha? So we have a machlekes, both in the name of Rabbah, and they're actually going to be so stubborn about the way they say it. It's going to be interesting. Abayi mishmei de Rabbah Amar. Abayi name of Rabbah says chayiv, that you're chayiv in such a case. Rav mishmei de Rabbah Amar says no, part to your part. So they're both saying the name of the same person, and look how they say it. Abayi mishmei de Rabbah Amar chayiv. He says you're going to be chayiv. And kol dayana deloy doin k'aydina, any judge who does not judge the way I'm saying, lav dayanahu. He's not a judge. And he explains the extreme, and look how extreme their opinions are. You don't have to say according to the one who says, which this is in reference to a Gemara later on, Daf Bezim at Aleph. The story over there is talking about that a shomer hid someone's money in a hut made of reeds. Now, putting money in a hut made of reeds is a negligence regarding fire. You get one little spark over there, everything's going up in smoke. But it is considered protected regarding thieves because it's the same way of protection. It's just very flammable. So it's just a problem regarding fire. And what happened is that it was stolen. Now, stealing regarding a shomer chinam, which is what he wasn't getting paid to watch it, is an einus, meaning it's an exemption. So it's a tchila b'pshia regarding the fire, because that's a negligence, having something in such a flammable place, but it ended up being a einus, which is what Geneva is for a shomer chinam. So says Abaya like this. Says, I don't have to tell you, according to the one who holds chilasa b'pshia, that even if you were originally negligent, but and at the end was einus, that chayiv, that you chayiv. So of course, according to the case we're discussing over here, where it went out to the swamp and died in the void, that chayiv you can be chayiv, because this is a case of chilasa b'pshia, but einus. I don't have to tell you, no. Ela filamandam potter. Even according to the one that says in the Gemara later on, Nav Mem Beis, you would be potter. Hacha chayiv higmi chayiv. My time. What's the reason? What? It's a chilasa b'pshia, but einus. You should be potter. No, because Darmina we say over there. And in the case of the hut made of reeds, the negligence was only regarding fire. But that's the only negligence. It was a great house. It was a protected area. It was only regarding fire because that's very flammable. Now, there was no fire. So therefore the one who holds Chalasab Shiva say, Bain is potter, will hold, okay, that's what you potter, because that's not what happened. But over here you could say that the animal actually died, even though death is an einus, you could say it died through the negligence. You could say, had it been in the house, it wouldn't have died. And that the fact that it went out to the marshland is the negligence that killed it. How's that? Because maybe Havla da Agma Katla, maybe the airspace of the swampland is what killed it. So it's different, says Zabaya. here, even the man damat chalas b'shiva b'ainis that says pater, he would agree that you'd be chayiv because it's not totally unrelated. It might have been that the ainis came through the b'shia. That's one opinion. It's not really sort of a b'shia. It's really an ainis, but you could say that the ainis happened because of the b'shia. Whereas over there, totally unrelated. The thievery has nothing to do with your negligence about flammability. It's they're prosecuting you for something that there's no shaykh. You're right. I was negligent with this. That's not why this happened. Totally unrelated. Here it says Abaya. It's still an ainis, but it could be that it's related to the b'shia. That's one opinion. The other extreme says Rav Mishmei Rabba. Rabba, again, they're both in the same Rebbe of theirs, Rabba, and they have opposite opinions, opposite extreme. He's Amar Pat. He says, no, you're going to be Pat. And he says, Kol Dayan Delay Dayan. Probably they heard from the Rebbe this, and they whatever it is that they're hearing opposite. He says, Kol Dayan Delay Dayan Kai Dana. Whoever doesn't judge like this, Lav Dayanahu, not a judge, an exact opposite. So you got to figure out which party line you're on over here. And he says the other extreme. He says, and I don't have to tell that generally, if you have such a situation that you're part of the part that you can be part over here, because that's what it is, safe ba'inus. No, even the one who holds over there by the hut, that you can be chayiv for the thievery because you are negligent regarding the flammability, which is totally unrelated. Even that man would say hacha pater would be pater. My time, what's the reason? Because I mean we say that malach hamava is the angel of death, right? It died through death. Mali hacha mali hasam. What's the difference if it's here, if it's over there? It has nothing to do. You can't run away from the angel of death. It's going to get you wherever it's going to get you. Now, what's with over there? So Rashi says, but over there regarding the money, if a person had watched it appropriately, which the Gemara over there tells us that money is only protected in the ground, it would not have been stolen. Now, although in a hut made of reeds, it's not normal for thieves to look for their money, and it is an aynis, but since you didn't protect it the way it ideally is protected, which is in the ground, so it got lost. But this cow, wherever it would have been in the house, in your bedroom, under your blankets, it still would have died. So therefore, says Rava, the opposite extreme. He says, even the one who holds over there that you're going to be chayiv, because even though it's totally unrelated, it's not totally unrelated, because you really should have protected the money by putting it underground, and then nothing would have happened with it, no negligence. Here, you're going to be pater because mali hacha mali hasa. Now, the Gemara just tells us that each one agrees to each other in certain cases. Abaye agrees, which Abaye is the extreme in being chayiv. He holds the ihadru lebeimara o meisa, that if it was returned to the owner's house and it died over there, the pater that the shem is going to be exempt. My time, what's the reason? Because the hadrula, because it was returned, and that the chiddush is then you can't say that the airspace of the swampland killed it and only affected at a later point in time. So if the animal was returned to the sheme's property and then they died, so then the shem is not liable. We don't say anymore that that was certainly an aynis which you pater on. And then the other manda amar, Omaydi Rava who is saying that you're pater, he would agree that you're going to be chayev, that kol hecha de iganva, ganav ba'agam. If, let's say, it was stolen by the thief in the swampland, which that's a negligence, because by letting it go out to the swamp, and it was stolen, that's clear the negligence what caused it. Even though if at the end of Mesa Kedar could be gone, let's say it died in a normal way by the house of the thief, that, remember, Rabbi was saying that, Mali Hacha Mali Hasam, death is a aynis, you should be pater. No, there he would agree the chayv give me chayv. I'm not going to say, what do you mean? Why? If it would have been by the Shemesh house, it would have died also. Sukkah is dying by the Gana's house. No, my time, what's the reason? So the Gemara explains. The truth is, the moment it was stolen, it's lost from the owners. That even if Shavka Malchamav, even if the angel of death would leave this animal alone, the face of the Ganda, it would be now in the house of the thief. So therefore, the liability is coming for the moment of the thievery, not the you're right, it died. You're saying, oh, death, it would have died here too, so I should be off the hook because look, it died. No, that's irrelevant, because even if the animal had not died, you would be chayiv already for the moment of Geneva, and therefore he would agree there that you wouldn't say the svar mali hacha mali hasam of death, and you'd be chayiv. Now, Amalei Abaye leRava. So we have this machlokes Abaye and Rava regarding the malach hamavas. So he says to him, according to you, that you say malach hamavas, the angel of death, mali hacha mali hasam. Who cares over here? Who cares over there? That the halach is going to be even the man amat chalas of chiva sev ba'inus holds that you generally chayiv. like in the case of the hut, here you're going to be pater. But then he says, I have the following question. It's related to what we said on Amud Aleph. If you remember from Amud Aleph, that Rabbi had said over Rabbi Yochanan's teaching of Shemesh Shemas L'Shomer is chayiv, and Rabbi Mamal had asked from the halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if a guy rents a cow and then he lends it to someone else, so he says, wait a second, if Rabbi Yochanan's halacha is correct, then how do you say that the seicher is pater because it died in the normal way? Why can't the owner tell him, I don't want my thing to be biyad acher? That itself, that you lent it to someone else, should make you liable. That was the question he asked him. B'shanla, he answered him, he says, good question. You're right, generally that would make a chiyuv. But we said is the owner gave him permission to lend it out. And therefore that's why he's not going to be chayv for that. Asks Abaye to Rava, what pushed Reb Ami to give such a doichik teretz, which is a doichik, it's like you have to tell me it's pushing it. It has to be what he said, I give you permission to lend it out. What do you mean? Why doesn't he just tell him that if another einus happened, that, what do you mean? The seicher could tell the owner, if it would have been if it would have been in his house, an einus wouldn't have happened, he should be chayiv, but this died in the normal way. So you could just say, Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, Mali Hacham, Mali Hasam. Who cares here, who cares over there? I mean, the Malach HaMavis would have killed it also in the house of the Seicher. So you could have answered that it died in the normal way, which you, Rava, are saying that everyone agrees you're going to be put in such a case. So says Abai, from the fact that Rabbi didn't answer like that, obviously you can infer, because according to the one that holds is chayiv, it's no difference if the einus Malach HaMavis from all the other einsim. I mean, just like other einsim, we say, well, maybe if it would have been in your house, it wouldn't have this einus, wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have been, bandits wouldn't have came, a fire wouldn't have happened, right? So therefore, you're chayiv in the mandamet chlas b'sheva b'einus. So therefore, the same thing is if it dies also, that you can be chayiv. Because if it was like you were saying, then why didn't Rabami answer that? Why does he have to give a deichet say he got permission? No, he wouldn't have permission. That the reason why he's patur is because it died. And if it died, so you're not chayiv for having died over here or dying over there. It's the same minus. So why is that not itself? Why didn't Rabami answer that? So Rabbi responds back to Abai, says, Liditchu. So it's an interesting answer that he tells him. According to you, Dimasnitu, you say in the reasoning, because remember, there's a machlokes Abai and Rava, how to qualify the machlokes, the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. You, Abaya, that you say that the reasoning why Shemesh Masla Shemesh Chayiv is because Ein Ritzoni Shebigdin B'Yad Acher. Remember, if you recall, we had give two reasonings in Rabbi Yochanan, Abaya and Rava. So Rava is telling him it's Lishitascha that it's difficult. Lishitasi is not difficult. You hold that the reason why you Chayiv is because the original owner can say, I don't want someone else having my deposit. So therefore, that's where you could have such a question. And what worked for Abami is what he answered. He says, I don't hold like that. I don't hold to the kasha, and I don't hold to the teretz. Because I mean, according to me, that I said, and the Gemara brought this previously, the reason why Shemesh Masr Shemesh Chayiv is because Anat Mehemet Li B'Shvua is a different svara. I trust you for the oath. I don't trust this guy with the oath. There's no question in the first place. Meaning, because the Seicher himself is swearing to the owner. That was the words of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, Shava ha-Seicher, Shemesa Gedarka, he's pater, and the Shayel will pay to the Seicher. The Mishnah is saying he's swearing. If you recall from Taisus, we said that was the nafkamim between Abai and Rava. So Rava is saying the question doesn't start. You're right. Rabbi Mamal asked Rabami, and Rabami answered. According to you, it's a relevant question. Why didn't he say the case of Malach HaMavis? But according to you, it's not difficult. You don't hold the Maisra Malach HaMavis, Malach HaMavis, Malach Hasam. Therefore, that's why Rabami didn't answer that. But according to me, the whole question of Rabbi Mamal doesn't even start. Because here there is no problem about Shemer Shemas L'Shemer, because it's all based on Shvuah. That's when the second guy is making a Shvuah. He doesn't trust it. The second guy's not making the Shvuah, the first guy is making the Shvuah. So Rabbi says, L'Shetasi, the question doesn't even start. And so don't ask me why I didn't give such a teretz, when by me the question wouldn't even be a question in the first place. But Master Rabbi Chama asks now on Abaya from the Mishnah later on, that's at the Gimel Amud Beis. Mishnah says, "Hello, if a shomer takes up an animal l'roshei tzukin to the top of a pointy and narrow mountain." Now, v'naflo, you see these pictures with these goats on the top of these mountains, and somewhere in the wherever it is in the Swiss Alps, who knows? And now he takes up the goat and it falls down. So says the Mishnah, "Ain't a oinus." That's not a oinus where it fell down. It's a negligence because it's normal for it to fall down. So v'chayiv is going to be chayiv. Okay. Now the inference is hamesa kedarka, but let's say on the top of the cliff it died normally. Just the animal had a heart attack and the animal just died. There is an oinus pater. So that would be an oinus because it died. That could be anywhere, and therefore it's a pater because this is what's called v'seifa ba'oinus. So you pater. Says the Gemara asking on Abaye, but why is this the halacha? Leimalei, why doesn't he tell him that avir dahar katla, that the cold of the mountain is what killed him? Meaning we're asking specifically on Abaya. Because remember, according to Rava, he says, no, malihacha malahasam. If I had a heart attack, it would always be the same here or there. So according to him, you would be pater, that would make sense. But according to Abai, who disagrees, says, no, you don't say the svar malihacha malahasam. You could say that maybe over here it died for a specific reason. So why is this guy going to be pater? Maybe it died only because you brought it over here to the cold. Or Yinami, you could say, uvtzino dahar katla. Maybe because it got worn out, and that's why I got a heart attack here on the top of the mountain. So you don't hold to this svar malihacha malahasam. So then why are we saying in the inference that if it died in a normal way to be pater, you should be chayiv? Says Gemara, what are we talking about over here? He brought this cow up to a pasture that was fatty and good, where it's the norm for the shepherds to take up their animals to graze. Whereas Taisa explains in the Masechta Shela, he says that okay, now it's not considered a pshia, it's not a negligence that you brought up there. The whole thing would be if it's tchilas and pshia, then you have the slave of b'inus. Oh, would we say that that's connected to your pshia, and we would hold you liable even though a heart attack is an inus? But we say, oh, but could be it came through your pshia. That was the whole discussion. It says Taisus, no, there's no pshia over here. This is what people always do, and it's not considered a negligence to bring it over there. So the inus ends up happening. If it just has a heart attack, then you're going to be pater. So the Gemara says, wait a second. So Ihachi, then why do you need a heart attack for? Naflanami. Then you should be pater also if the animal fell, because that's an inus. Why there are you going to be chayiv versus the heart attack? Says the Gemara, no, shahaylo l'takfa, because he should have grabbed a hold of the animal, because that's how shepherds normally do, like takfa. He didn't grab a hold of it. So although it fell, well, that's not considered as an inus, and they're going to be chayiv. So the Gemara says, wait, if that's the case, ema reisha. Look at the reisha. This was the seifa of Hela, where he brought it up. The reisha talks about a case of ulsa, which Taisa discusses. He explains this a little bit differently, but this is how Rashi explains it. Ulsa, if the animal goes up on its own, l'roshei tzukin, it went up on its own to the top of the cliff, but nothing falls. So says the Mishnah, okay, that's an oin. So what can I do? The animal went up on its own and fell. Why? He should have grabbed a hold of it, not let it do that. So no, we needed shetakfasai. We're talking about where it grabbed him forcibly, but also, and it went up, meaning he couldn't hold on to it. It was stronger than him. So he's like holding on for dear life, the animal going up, and he's like going up to the top of the cliff. And takfasa v'yarda, and they grabbed him and it went down. So therefore, that's why he's going to be pater in that case, versus when he brings it up, which Taisa explains this in a different way, l'shitasai. But Akapan, that's the understanding of that Mishnah, and therefore it's not difficult on Baya. Now, we said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yisi, the Rabbi Yisi says, he doesn't like this halacha. He says, seriously? Like the guy, the renter is going to make money off this oinus that happened to the cow that he rented? So no, the cow has to be given back to the Bailam. So I'm reviewing the Mishnah. He says, halacha like Rabbi, that yeah, of course, the guy can't be doing business with what he rented. If something happens, and there's a shayl, it should go to the original owner. Rabbi Yehuda says, wait, Amr Lamashmei the Shmuel, you said to us the name of Shmuel, that Chalkar Rabbi Yisi, as you continue to Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, After Shayna, that Rabbi Yisi disagreed even in the Mishnah, the previous Mishnah, meaning our opening Mishnah of a mafkid was that if the shomer paid, and he doesn't want to swear, So our Mishnah said, okay, the opening Mishnah said that the Shemer is going to get the kefil because he paid it out. He didn't have to. He could have sworn. So the kefil, if they finally got him, is going to go to him. The Rabbi Yossi held no. How could this guy pocket this guy's kefil? No, the kefil goes back to the original owner. It doesn't go to him. So that they asked, halacha k'maisa or in halacha k'maisa? Is halacha like Rabbi Yossi even on that halacha? Not like our opening Mishnah of a mafkid, that even for the kefil he can't get it, or not? Somebody says, Chalik Rabbi Yossi af b'rishayin. He says, yeah, you're right. Rabbi Yossi disagreed even on the first Mishnah. But halacha k'maisa af b'rishayin, halacha is like him even on the first Mishnah. Even on we learn Amar Laws, this is Chalik Rabbi Yossi af b'rishayin. Halacha Rabbi Yossi even on the first halacha, that even for kefil he can't get. But halacha k'maisa af b'rishayin, halacha is like him even by the first one. Rabbi Yechonam, he disagrees. Says no. Rabbi Yossi agrees in the opening Mishnah in the first halacha because Shkvar Shilim, they're already paid before they even found the ganav. So he acquires the kefil, as the Gemara explained, that originally when the owner he has that in mind that if you're going to pay me the principal, you'll be able to keep the kefil. So the Gemara just asks on the wording of Rabbi Yechonam, wait, Shilim in only if the Shemer paid for the principal, only then does he get the later kefil. But Lo Shilim if it doesn't pay not. But if you remember, we said this on the Lamed Dalman Aleph, Rabbi Yechonam is quoted as saying, Lo Shilim Shilim Mamish. It's not like the Shemer has to actually pay. Even if he just says, I'll pay, even though he didn't pay, and then they find the guy that the cable goes to him. So the Gemara says, yeah, you say, Rabbi agrees in the first halach, he doesn't disagree with our opening Mishnah. He already says, I'm going to pay, and that even Rabbi would agree to that halacha, that yes, the cable is going to go to him. He just disagrees on our Mishnah regarding this halacha of the actual principle itself, where the shayl, if the shayl is going to be paying, it's going to go to the original owner, not to him. But regarding kefil, he agrees that the shemer could get the kefil thing at any time.